the city of St. Louis reported 61 new cases. Now, of those 61 new cases, 20 of them are quite old, more than 30 days old, and they were transferred to us from another jurisdiction. So that makes that blip rather unusual. So even not accounting for those 20, we would have had 41 cases, which is still a higher number than what we'd like to have, of course. The hospitalization numbers remain high. 305 people in the hospital, 96 people now in the ICU, 52 people on ventilators. Those numbers are all have been pretty consistent, but actually the yesterday's numbers were a little bit higher over the last week. And you know these hospitalization numbers run 2 days behind. So that's not a very good situation. Patients admitted 2 days ago were 43. Patients discharged were 30. So still, we don't know, of the people that are in the hospital in the region, we don't know where they're from. We don't know their zip code. We don't know where they live. That information is not available to us from the hospitals. So what we're seeing here is that the task force on Friday did a live update. And for those of you that are really interested in looking at this data, you might want to look at their update from Friday. But the long and the short of it is that their data says that for areas with mandatory mask orders, it's about, I want to say this correctly. The growth in the number of cases is about 30% less in areas that have a mandatory mask update than those that do not. And so, of course, we like for every place to have a mandatory mask update. I see anecdotally in the city of St. Louis that we have pretty good compliance with our mask order. Goodness knows we've been talking about it for weeks, for months. If we could get 95% mask compliance, our cases would probably go down. At least according to the data, when you look at the growth rate in those areas that don't have a mask order versus the growth rate in the number of cases in areas that do have a mask order. That being said, I'll be honest with you, maybe this is just a little frustration. I don't know, as much as we've been talking about masks, I don't know if we'll convince anybody else to wear one just because of that statistic. So I would just say thank you to all of you that are taking the mask order very seriously. You wearing a mask is keeping our cases within a tolerable range, not where we want it to be, but within a tolerable range. And that means it's keeping more businesses open and more people employed. So thank you for that. For those of you that are not wearing masks, I hope you'll come around and begin wearing them, because they do slow the growth rate of the number of cases. So I think that's about all I have on COVID today. Oh, I could also report to you that we are continuing to see, and I'll use the 2-week number here, of the tests that were taken within the last 2 weeks where we have the information. 30% of those tests have come back for people in their 20s represents 30% of those cases. People in their 30s represent 19% of those cases. So we're still running at 50%, give or take, of the new cases are people in their 20s and 30s. So be careful out there. That's about all I have for COVID today. I want to talk a little bit just about, I think everyone must know this by now, but sadly on Saturday night we had 2 police officers shot Officer Bohannon passed away last evening. And so that is a very sad situation for, certainly for his family and his friends. I was with them a few times yesterday at the hospital, and they are lovely people, wonderful people who are very, very proud of the work that their son did with the St. Louis Police Department, as they should be. He is married and has 3 little kids. So it's just exceptionally sad and senseless violence. Another officer was also shot trying to assist Officer Bohannon. I spoke with him yesterday. He has been released from the hospital. That's good. He was shot in the leg. A lot of other officers took incoming fire. So that is since June the 1st, so 3 months, last 90 days, there have been 8 St. Louis City police officers shot, and quite a number of others fired upon but not hit. It's just a very serious situation. A lot of violence, a lot of guns, and a lot of pain in the community. We need for our entire criminal justice system to work. And, you know, people say, well, why is this happening? It's happening across the country in every major city. Nobody knows that answer for sure, of course, but there's a lot of pain in our community. There are a lot of drugs in our community. There's increased addiction and overdoses. There are disputes. There are rivalries. So we are continuing to see that in St. Louis as we are across the country. Our police are being stretched by responding to that violence, by trying to prevent that violence, by responding to many protests. That takes manpower, it takes hours. And so it is just a very serious situation. We are, as you all know, constantly trying to do recruiting for our police officers. We are hopeful that tomorrow the state Senate will pass a bill that lifts the residency requirement so that we can have a larger geography to be able to recruit officers from. We are the only municipality in the region that has a residency requirement, so everybody else can recruit from the city of St. Louis, but the city of St. Louis cannot recruit from anywhere else. So that's an impediment. We hope that'll be lifted. We do need to fill the 140, I believe the number this morning was 145 police officers short. We do need to fill those spots. On a bit of good news, on Thursday evening we do have a police class graduating. And so that's between 25 and 30 individuals that'll be graduating. We're happy about that, happy to have them come on board at certainly we need them, but coming on board at a very challenging time for police departments across the country. Now, I will also say that we do need more funding for mental health, for addiction. We need more funding for cure violence. Well, let me say that we have the funding for cure violence. The second office opened in St. Louis on Saturday. That's a process that's going to take a while, but it is certainly, we think, a good thing. We also do have rewards being offered for information leading to the arrest of anyone in these violent crimes, being offered by Crime Stoppers. I think you all know that that's been out there for some time. So we need the community's help, and we need the community to support our police department and our police officers. So I know most of you do. Thank you for that. And it's just a very sad day to have to report that one of our officers died in the line of duty. So, so that's all I'll say about that subject right now. But do we have questions, Jacob?
Couple of questions, Mayor. Yuri wrote in and asked if you could also provide an update today on what is happening with some of the downtown lane restrictions and bridge closures, street closures.
Thanks for that question, Yuri. I was going to cover that. So it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow that we closed some sections of Washington Avenue, closed the Eads Bridge, put some narrowing of the lanes in place. So the last 2 weekends, this weekend, we still had some cruising, but it was a much better weekend than the weekend before, and way, way better than 3 weekends ago. So we do believe that it's helping. It's also helping, of course, we have a lot of law enforcement in place. And so what we're doing is beginning to tweak it. This morning at 5 in the morning, we reopened the Eads Bridge. We know that people who live in Illinois need to get to work in St. Louis and use that bridge extensively. So it was reopened this morning. Now, it will be closed again Friday evening by 9 o'clock, and it will stay closed until Saturday morning, again at 5 a.m. So it will be closed overnight on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, on the weekend nights, and open during the day. During the week, it'll be open Monday morning to Friday night. So hopefully that will help accommodate folks who need to travel back and forth to Illinois, but also give us some flexibility in terms of fewer places for folks that want to cruise and drive fast and recklessly. So that's a change that we made this morning at 5 a.m. We're also tweaking some of the closures on Washington Avenue in conversation with some of the business owners there. We are going to reopen Wash Ave from 12th to 14th just during the day. And, trying to help those businesses to be able to get their customers there, but then it will be closed on the evening. I think I just said that wrong. Let me start over on that. We're going to open it Monday through Friday, but then, like the Eads Bridge, we're going to just have it open during the day. So that's Washington Avenue situation. So we're tweaking it. We are continuing to hear from people. We are trying to support our businesses and support people being able to get around and still give our police the tools that they need.
Jason has a question, Mayor, on the issue of officer shortages or staffing shortages. Why do you think it is that maybe some people in the city of St. Louis don't or are not interested in signing up to be police officers?
Well, Jason, I think it is that case across the country, in St. Louis County, in cities across the country. Everyone is having difficulty recruiting officers. There's a lot of turmoil in law enforcement today. And I think that's one of the reasons, of course. Secondarily, for city, specific to the city, I think we have a couple of impediments. One is the residency that we can only recruit from within the city of St. Louis. And secondly, our compensation is not as good as some other departments. Now, we did pass Proposition P almost 3 years ago now, not quite. And we were able to give officers 2 years ago a $6,000 raise. St. Louis County has continued to give raises, and so that gap continues to exist. So I think it's a pretty complicated subject. Law enforcement is under a lot of criticism right now, and while we understand some of that, we all want law enforcement there to respond when we need for them to respond. And so that's certainly part of the equation, I think.
On the topic of COVID-related matters, Mayor, today SLPS returned for the fall. Joe's question is will all students in the city be required to wear masks, or is it a recommendation?
Yes, all of the students at SLPS, all students in the city, are required to wear masks at school. Now, we know that because the schools are requiring it. The city mandate is that anybody 9 or older would have to be wearing a mask.
Cody's question, Mayor, related to COVID, is wondering if the city still has assistance available to help people prevent them from becoming homeless if they've been impacted by economically by COVID-19.
Cody, we have extensive programs to prevent folks from becoming homeless and also to house those people that are homeless and to help them get back on their feet. So one of the biggest programs, of course, is the Rental and Mortgage Assistance Program, which I've talked about extensively for the last couple of weeks. And we've had over 6,000 applications for people who need rental or mortgage assistance. About 2,000 of those applications were from people in St. Louis County, so we transferred them to St. Louis County. But still, 4,000 to 5,000 people in the city of St. Louis who are applying for rental or mortgage assistance. We are partnering with about a dozen agencies to help us take those applications, process those applications. It's available, mortgage and rental assistance is available to people that cannot pay their rent or mortgage because they were laid off or their hours were reduced after March 1st, I think was the date, so specifically related to COVID. The other thing, of course, is that we have an eviction moratorium in place for those people that can't pay their rent because of COVID-related reduction of hours or income. Now, the evictions still are moving on for those folks that are being processed as a result of crimes happening at the house or behavioral issues, house, apartment, either way. So those evictions still can move forward, but if it's a matter of not being able to pay rent because your income has been reduced because of COVID, then that's what the rental and mortgage assistance is for.
Amir's question, Mayor, on the topic of public safety. Is there something you or the city can do about firearms within the city limits?
Amir, such a good question. So, we are we live with the state laws on firearms. I've talked about this a number of times. The state has preempted any municipality, city, county, from making their own gun laws or enforcing their own gun laws. So there's a couple things I'd like to have. I'll talk about one of them specifically. Certainly, I think it would be good if people had to have a permit to carry a gun. It used to be that way up until January of 2017. So now virtually anyone can carry a gun anywhere, anytime, and sort of no questions asked. No training required, no permit required, no questions asked. From my point of view, if the city of St. Louis, if the state would allow the city of St. Louis just to have a permit requirement so that we could, if someone is stopped or whatever, we could say, could we see your permit? Police could say, could we see your permit? That would be of some help because our streets are filled with guns. So far, we have not been successful at persuading the state to allow us to require a permit. And we're seeing some of the results of that.
On the downtown closures, Mayor, sorry to bounce around, but
Okay.
have you noticed people taking advantage of the added pedestrian space with some of the narrowings and closures?
Some, yes. When a street's completely closed, of course, you see people walking in the street, maybe kids riding their bikes, that sort of thing. That's been good. But what you don't see much of is we're not seeing much outdoor dining in those spaces, and we need, those businesses need that. And so that's why we're trying to tweak this a little bit. I think going forward, we really need to think about ways to, I'm thinking of Washington Avenue in particular, and I was there this morning, ways to narrow the corners of that, bump out the corners, maybe with some seating areas. Now, I'm not a designer, but what I do know is that making some adjustments like that can make a street feel much safer, be narrower, people drive slower when that's the case. So, and of course, we need parking, we understand that, so you wouldn't want to do it all the way, but perhaps at the corners and some of those things, it might be a helpful situation.
We have a few folks asking if you have an update or could provide an update on the status of voting at Busch Stadium.
You know, I don't have an update on that today. Friday, I did report on that the Cardinals organization and the election board were in conversations about that. So I don't have an update on that from this morning, but we'll get that for you for next time.
And Lindy's question, Mayor, is the building division at City Hall. Are they still open and available for research on building permits and things
yeah.
like that?
Oh yeah, the building division's open. Every department in city government is open and has been for a long time, several months now. When did we, May something? I don't remember the date.
May.
Maybe June 1st. But at any rate, yes, building division is open. When you say research on permits, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to. You know, if you're wondering, for example, if an address has and they're doing some work, if you're wondering if they have a permit, you can look that up online. You can go to Geo St. Louis and put the address in and look under the permit section and see whether there was an electrical permit or a construction permit or plumbing or whatever. You can look that up online.
So we got a follow-up question about the Cure Violence site that you mentioned, Mayor, and I believe they opened over the weekend and how
They
that
did.
program's going.
Yep.
The implementation in the city.
Yeah, so this is the second Cure Violence site to open. And they have done hiring, so they are doing all their training. And first Cure Violence site opened about 3 months ago, I'm going to say, early summer. And so this is a second Cure Violence site in Dutchtown, which opened, and Employment Connections is running both of those sites.
That is it for questions today, Mayor.
That's it. Thank you all. Appreciate you being with us. If I could just say, please keep Officer Bohannon's family in your thoughts and prayers. For those of you that can, contribute to Backstoppers. Backstoppers will help to take care of that family for a long time. And so it's backstoppers.org. If you Google that, put that in right on their homepage as a place to donate. Backstoppers takes care of police and firefighters, emergency responders, particularly when someone has passed away. And it's really invaluable. So for those of you that are able, please try to contribute to backstoppers.org. Thank you.